UFC Fight Night, Tuivasa versus Tybura is this Saturday, and for each fight, including the prelims, I'm going to give a brief introduction of each fighter, compare their stats, review their recent fight history, analyze the results of each of my 7 data science prediction models, give a combined weighted prediction of those models, and give final predictions that consider both quantitative and qualitative information. At the end of the video, I'll also show you logical bets that you might want to consider based on my final predictions, along with their odds, probabilities, and returns. Hopefully you can use these predictions and data to confirm your picks, avoid mistakes, and find some value bets. Please like and subscribe if you find this interesting, informative, or helpful, as it helps keep me motivated in creating these videos for you all. Running this data and analysis, the prediction models, the fight simulations, charts and graphs, and updating the website takes hours every day and week, so I'd really appreciate the support. And thank you all for your recent support that you've continuously shown me. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. First, let's quickly take a look at our results. For the previous 10 events, we're averaging 69%. All-time, we're averaging 68%. All-time pay-per-views, we're averaging 71%. And all-time fight nights, we're averaging 67%. And for UFC 299, we were 71.4%. Alright, for the first fight, we have Charalampos Grigoriou versus Chad Enriches. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these two fighters. First, we have Charalampos Grigoriou, who's from Greece. Grigoriou has made a name for himself with his remarkable striking skills and his agility inside the cage, predominantly competing in European promotions where he's known for his precise kickboxing techniques. His performances have been notable for their technical proficiency, showcasing a blend of speed and power that has caught the eye of fans and critics alike. His opponent, Chad Enriches, is from Canada and brings a different set of skills to this matchup. Enriches has a strong background in mixed martial arts, and he's distinguished by his resilience and versatile fighting style, which combines a solid ground game with effective stand-up striking. Enriches' ability to adapt to his opponents and overcome adversity has earned him recognition and respect. Now let's go ahead and review these fighters' stats. Charalampos Grigoriou is 31 years old. He stands at 5 feet 7 inches tall with a reach of 67 inches. I want to give y'all some context to his data though. His stats are only based on one fight, which was his fight at Dana White's Contender Series back in August 2023 when he fought Cameron Smotherman, so his stats don't really have a large sample size. Normally, fighter stats are more meaningful if there are more fights, so we can see how that fighter tends to perform over several fights. With that in mind, in that fight against Cameron, he landed 13 significant strikes at an accuracy of 65%. His striking defense was also noteworthy, as he avoided 63% of incoming attacks. On the other side, Chad Enriches is slightly shorter at 5 feet 6 inches with a 64-inch reach. At 37 years old, Enriches presents a potentially less aggressive striking game, landing an average of 3.07 significant strikes per minute with 42% accuracy. He exhibits a more moderate defense with a striking defense rate of 51%. Notably, Enriches has a takedown average of 1.03 per fight at a 36% takedown accuracy, though Grigoriou hasn't really showcased any takedown attempts. Let's review Grigoriou's recent fight history. In his clash with Cameron Smotherman, Grigoriou secured a first-round KO/TKO victory with a barrage of punches. He was also Combat FC's bantamweight champion, which he earned when he notably TKO'd Chris Dissanel. Before facing Smotherman, Grigoriou boasted a 3-fight win streak, one of which was against Dissanel in Combat FC, while the other 2 victories came in Cage Fury. With a record of 8 wins and 3 losses, it's worth noting that all 3 of his defeats occurred before 2022, each via a unanimous decision. His losses show a potential vulnerability to opponents that can extend the fight and outmaneuver him. Notably, the majority of Grigoriou's wins are by way of KO/TKO, which indicates he's a very aggressive fighter. Let's go ahead and shift our focus to Enriches' recent fight history. Unfortunately, he has faced defeat in his last 2 fights. His most recent fight was against Jose Johnson, where he lost because of a rear naked choke submission, and prior to that fight, he lost by unanimous decision to Ale Tengeli. His last victory dates back to early 2022 when he secured a KO/TKO victory over Jesse Strader in the 3rd round. It appears that Enriches tends to perform better in fights when he can land a higher volume of strikes. Unfortunately, I couldn't put these two through the 7 prediction models because Grigoriou doesn't have enough data yet, but based on the probability that the odds are pointing towards, it seems that Charalampos Grigoriou has the upper hand in this fight. All things considered, it's clear that Gregorio holds the advantage. With the current winning streak and momentum in his favor, Gregorio hasn't experienced defeat since early 2021. Considering these factors, it's reasonable to anticipate that he will dominate Enriches and win via KO/TKO. Also, let's be honest, at 37 years old, Enriches is 6 years older than Gregorio and most likely past his prime, so this further tilts the odds in Gregorio's favor. In the next fight, we have Jacqueline Amorim versus Corey McKenna. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these two fighters. Jacqueline Amorim is from Brazil and has made waves in the MMA world with her outstanding ground game and submission skills. A standout in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Amorim has transitioned her grappling expertise into the cage, showcasing her talents in promotions like LFA, where she's dominated opponents with her technique and strength. Her ability to control fights on the mat and secure finishes through submissions has marked her as a rising star in the strawweight division. Her opponent, Corey McKenna, comes from the United Kingdom and brings a well-rounded skill set to the fight. Known for her tenacity and strategic approach, McKenna has made a name for herself in the UFC, displaying a mix of striking and grappling that has allowed her to compete at the highest levels. Her adaptability and fight IQ have been her key to success, making her one of the young fighters to watch in the women's strawweight division. McKenna's capability to engage effectively both on the feet and on the ground makes this matchup a really interesting one. Now let's go ahead and take a look at their stats. Both fighters stand at 5 feet 3 inches tall, with Amorim bringing in a reach of 68 inches and an experience advantage at 28 years old, compared to McKenna's 58-inch reach and being at a younger age of 24. That's a significant reach advantage of 10 inches. Amorim throws 3.42 significant strikes per minute at a 52% striking accuracy, indicating she's not only active but very precise. On the defensive end, Amorim showcases her ability to avoid damage with a 62% striking defense and presents a serious threat on the ground with a 3.7 submission average. McKenna, however, shows proficiency in grappling with a higher takedown defense at 71% and a slightly more frequent takedown average at 2.04. Reviewing Amorim's recent fight history, she has a balanced record of a win and a loss. In her victory at UFC Fight Night, Luque vs. Dos Anjos, she displayed her dominance by securing a knockout with punches. However, in UFC 287 Pereira vs. Adesanya 2, despite attempting 2 takedowns, she couldn't convert them to a win, suggesting potential areas to bolster, particularly in her striking, where she landed only 12 significant strikes compared to 86 from her win. Let's go ahead and take a look at McKenna's recent fight history. Her fight history is quite telling, with a record of 4 wins and 1 loss in her last 5 fights. Her most notable win was at UFC Fight Night, Cannonier vs. Strickland against Cheyenne Vlismas, showcasing her grappling with 2 takedowns. However, her loss came when she was outstruck by Elise Reed. So while McKenna is strong on the ground, she might struggle against fighters who can control the stand-up game and deny her grappling attempts. Turning to the predictive models, most are leaning towards Jacqueline Amorim to win. For example, the logistics and random forest models lean towards Amorim with a 56 and 54% probability respectively, showing confidence in her chances of winning. However, the neural network model and gradient boosting model suggests a completely different scenario, favoring McKenna significantly with 73% and 93% win probabilities, which are likely picking up on her takedown advantages. When we weigh all predictive models together, Amorim comes out with a 56% chance of winning. This figure suggests that when considering a broad range of data and methodologies, Amorim is statistically the more likely victor, but not by a landslide. Considering all of the data and analysis, I predict Jacqueline Amorim will come out on top with a slightly less confident 54% probability of winning. Amorim's striking accuracy and defensive capabilities, paired with her significant threat on the ground, give her the edge. However, given McKenna's takedown defense and her own grappling skill, this won't be a straightforward win. I foresee Amorim using her well-rounded skill set to control the pace and location of the fight, seeking either to outstrike McKenna on the feet or bring the fight to the ground and work towards a submission. So my final prediction is a victory for Jacqueline Amorim by submission, most likely a result of her superior grappling and control on the ground, where her higher submission average may well come into play. Now, alternatively, if the fight stays standing, her striking precision could lead to a decision win. The odds are close, reflecting the competitive nature of this fight, and while McKenna will certainly put up a challenging fight, Amorim's versatility is likely to prevail. In the next fight, we have Josh Culibao versus Danny Silva. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these two fighters. Josh Culibao comes out of Australia and has quickly risen in MMA with his dynamic fighting style and impressive adaptability. Culibao has shown a knack for exciting fights, blending striking with a keen sense of grappling. His performances are marked by a strategic mind and the ability to execute game plans effectively. His opponent, Danny Silva, is from Brazil and has carved out a space for himself in MMA with his aggressive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. Competing in various promotions before making his way into the UFC, he's known for his ferocity on the ground and his powerful strikes. Silva's ability to combine these disciplines seamlessly into his fighting style has made him a tough matchup for anyone, showcasing the heart and skill that Brazilian fighters are known for. Now let's compare their stats. Josh Culibao stands at 5 feet 10 inches tall and is 29 years old with a reach of 73 inches. His striking game delivers 2.68 significant strikes per minute with a striking accuracy of 42%. His takedown defense is solid at 72% and he usually prefers to keep the fight standing. Before we dive into Danny Silva's stats, it's important to note that these stats are coming from one fight, which was Dana White's Contender Series fight against Angela Pacheco in September 2023. Danny Silva is slightly taller at 5 feet 11 inches and younger at 27 years old and has a reach of 70 inches. His stats from that fight against Angel Pacheco are impressive, with a striking rate of 13.6 significant strikes per minute and a 64% striking accuracy, which indicates he has a more aggressive approach in the stand-up game. He also exhibits ground game capabilities as he was able to land 2 takedowns and utilize his takedown defense. Now let's take a look at Josh's recent fight history. He has a mix of results in his last 5 UFC fights, with a draw and a loss after 3 consecutive wins. His striking and takedown defense were tested across these fights, showing resilience in his fighting strategy but also exposing some areas for potential improvement, especially in his grappling game as he hasn't really scored a takedown recently. Now looking at Danny Silva's recent fight history, like I said earlier, he has had only 1 fight related to UFC in his record, which he won. In that fight, he showcased an aggressive approach, landing 204 significant strikes and completing 2 takedowns, a clear demonstration of his capability to control the fight both on the feet and on the ground. Now, before he joined the UFC, he used to compete in LFA, where he had 2 wins, one against Alex Arteaga and the other against Elijah Leger via KO/TKO and unanimous decision, respectively. There, he also suffered a majority decision loss to Kanan Kawahai. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough data available to put both of these fighters through the multiple prediction models, but based on the odds, there's a statistical confidence in Culibao's overall fighting capabilities and his historical performance. Taking everything into consideration, I believe Josh Culibao will emerge victorious. Given his striking defense and his ability to avoid takedowns, it's reasonable to forecast that the fight will largely be a stand-up battle. Although Silva shows promise in his striking and takedown abilities, Culibao's experience might just edge him out. I predict that Culibao will win, most likely by decision, using his striking accuracy and defense to score points over the rounds. However, with Silva's demonstrated striking volume and takedown capabilities, if Culibao can withstand the initial onslaught, he could also seize an opportunity to finish the fight with a submission should Silva's defense waver. In the next fight, we have Rafael Filho versus Ode Osborne. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these 2 fighters. Rafael Filho originates from Brazil and is known for his explosive fighting style, his impressive victories, powerful striking, and agility. Filho has spent a significant portion of his career showcasing his skills in various Brazilian promotions, where his ability to deliver knockout blows and engage in fast-paced fights has made him a standout competitor. His ability to entertain the crowd and finish fights early has quickly made him a fan favorite. His opponent, Ode Osborne, is from Jamaica but fights out of the United States. Osborne brings a unique blend of speed and technical skill to the octagon. Competing in the UFC, Osborne has demonstrated his versatile skill set, which includes slick striking and a solid ground game. His performances are marked by a creative and dynamic approach to fighting, often using his reach and agility to outmaneuver opponents. Osborne's ability to stay unpredictable and execute precise strikes has earned him respect in the flyweight division, making this fight against Filho a highly anticipated matchup. Now let's go ahead and look at their stats. Rafael Filho, at 30 years old, holds a reach of 68 inches and brings to the octagon a statistical balance between his striking and grappling. He lands an average of 2 significant strikes per minute with a striking accuracy of 37%. His grappling is notable with an average of 1.53 takedowns, although his takedown accuracy is relatively low at 27%. His grappling is notable with an average of 1.53 takedowns, although his takedown accuracy is relatively low at 27%. His submission average is impressive at 2, indicating a strong submission game. Ode Osborne, 2 years older than Filo, has a notable reach advantage at 73 inches and boasts a higher striking rate of 3.74 strikes per minute, with a striking accuracy of 39%. His takedown defense is at 68%, which is significantly higher than Filo's, pointing to his ability to maintain the fight standing where he seems to prefer it, with a lower takedown average of 1.37. Let's take a look at Filo's recent record. He has shown mixed results in his most recent UFC fights, with 2 wins and a loss. His victory over Daniel Barras with an arm triangle and a loss via a neck crank submission against Muhammad Mokaev highlight his engagement during grappling exchanges. His ability to both finish and be finished in submission battles speaks to an aggressive grappling approach. He also has a KO/TKO victory against Royber Echeverria, where he also landed 2 takedowns. Now let's take a look at Osborne's record, which is a seesaw of wins and losses in his last 5 fights, with notable knockout power displayed in his fights against Zaruk Adashev. He also has decision victories against Charles Johnson and CJ Vergara. His recent loss against Asu Almabayev via rear naked choke, however, suggests susceptibility in his ground game, contrasting his otherwise strong standing performance. Let's take a look at what the predictive models are saying for this fight. The odds probability in the neural network model heavily favor Filo, whereas the 1000 fight simulation model surprisingly tilts towards Osborne, suggesting that when the fight dynamics are played out, Osborne might have the edge. This is honestly a pretty good matchup. Combining all of these model predictions provides a more nuanced view, which shows that Filo ends up with a slight statistical edge at 52% probability to defeat Osborne. This weighted prediction considers all aspects of the fighter's abilities and their past performances. My analysis, combined with the predictive models, leads me to forecast that Rafael Filo will come out on top with a slightly more confident 57% chance of victory. Given Filo's demonstrated proficiency in submissions and a respectable defense against significant strikes, it's plausible that he will aim to take this fight to the ground. His submission average points to a strategy of seeking a tap out of his opponents. Considering Osborne's recent vulnerability on the ground, Filo's path to victory likely involves grappling exchanges where he can apply his submission skills. However, Osborne's striking rate and reach advantage mean that Filo's success will depend on his ability to close the distance and initiate clinches or takedowns without absorbing too much damage. If Filo can manage to do this, I foresee him securing a win through submission, possibly via a choke, given the history of both fighters. Nevertheless, Osborne's takedown defense could force a striking battle where the fight might sway towards a decision. If it comes to that, Filo will need to leverage his agility to overcome the reach advantage and score with significant strikes to gain the judge's favor. In the next fight, we have Christian Rodriguez versus Isaac Dulgarian. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these 2 fighters. Christian Rodriguez comes from the United States and has quickly made a name for himself with his aggressive fighting style and his determination inside the cage. Rodriguez has impressed fans and critics alike with his well-rounded skills, including sharp striking and proficient grappling. His ability to mix up his attacks and push the pace has made him a tough opponent for anyone he's faced, showcasing an impressive level of versatility and fight IQ. His opponent, Isaac Dulgarian, is also from the United States and brings his own set of impressive credentials to this match. A rising star in the featherweight division, Dulgarian has demonstrated his skills in both striking and grappling across various regional promotions before making his mark on the larger stages. Known for his power and athleticism, he's able to finish fights whether standing or on the ground. Dulgarian's aggressive approach and confidence in his abilities make him a challenging match for Rodriguez, promising an exciting clash of styles when they meet in the octagon. Now let's go ahead and review their stats. Christian Rodriguez, at 26 years old, is the younger of the 2 fighters by a year, and both share an identical reach of 71 inches. Rodriguez delivers a good volume of strikes at 3.51 significant strikes per minute with a striking accuracy of 46%. He shows a competent grappling game with an average of 1.4 takedowns per 15 minutes and a respectable submission average of 1.4. Defensively, he's solid with a 70% takedown defense rate. Isaac Dulgarian's stats are based off of 1 fight against Francis Marshall in UFC Fight Night Luque vs. Dos Anjos back in August 2023. Now, in that fight, he displayed an impressive strike rate of 7.29 significant strikes per minute with a higher accuracy of 66%. He tends to keep the fight standing. Let's take a look at Rodriguez's recent fight history. He has a string of wins in his recent UFC fights and a loss to Jonathan Pierce from 4 fights ago. Since then, he's won 3 fights in a row against Cameron Simon, Raul Rosas Jr., and Joshua Weems. He's demonstrated versatility in his victories, and they have ranged from unanimous decision victories to submission wins, like the Anaconda choke against Joshua Weems. His fight statistics show a well-rounded fighter who can handle himself both on the ground and standing up. Dolgarian's recent fight history in the UFC isn't as loaded as Rodriguez's, as I mentioned earlier. He dominated Francis Marshall, throwing 35 strikes and landing a takedown as he got the KO/TKO via elbows in round 1. He previously fought at Fighting Alliance Champion, where he had a 5-fight win streak. He's 6-0 currently. 4 of his wins are from KO/TKOs, and 2 are from submissions. He's pretty well-rounded and dangerous. Let's break down what the prediction models are showing. Majority of the prediction models favor Isaac Dolgarian, with probabilities ranging from 51 to 76%. Only one prediction model favored Christian Rodriguez, which was the 1,000 fight simulations, and it gave him a 74% confident probability of winning. When weighing all of these predictive models together, we see a lean towards Isaac Dolgarian with a 58% win probability. This indicates a relatively close fight, but that Isaac Dolgarian is more likely to win. Considering all of the available information out there, I predict Isaac Dolgarian will win with a slightly less confident 55% probability. Dolgarian's exceptional striking rate and accuracy might be the key factors, especially if he maintains the fight standing where he seems most comfortable. Rodriguez's ability to take the fight to the ground and seek submissions could certainly play a role, but he would need to get past Dolgarian's significant striking threat. My prediction is that Dolgarian will secure a victory, likely through a KO/TKO, capitalizing on his striking strength. However, Rodriguez's defensive abilities and his own striking skill shouldn't be underestimated, and if he can effectively manage the distance and still engage in grappling, he may sway the fight in his favor and aim for a decision win or even a submission if he can find an opening. In the next fight, we have Josiane Nunes versus Chelsea Chandler. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these two fighters. Josiane Nunes is from Brazil, and she has been turning heads in MMA with her incredible power and relentless aggression. Nunes has quickly become known for her ability to deliver devastating strikes and her fearless approach to engaging with her opponents. Her stand-up game is characterized by heavy hands and a granite chin, which have led her to accumulate an impressive record, showcasing her as a serious threat to anyone standing across from her in the octagon. Her opponent, Chelsea Chandler, hails from the United States and brings a gritty, determined fighting style to the cage. Chandler has earned recognition for her performances in Invicta FC, where she's demonstrated a well-rounded skill set that includes powerful striking and a solid ground game. Her ability to blend techniques and maintain pressure has made her a solid competitor, earning her a spot among the most notable fighters in the women's featherweight division. Chandler's resilience and adaptability, matched with her striking and power, set the stage for an exciting matchup against Nunes, promising a fight filled with action and intensity. Now let's compare their stats. Josiane Nunes and Chelsea Chandler stand at 5 feet 2 inches tall and 5 feet 8 inches tall respectively, giving Chandler a notable height advantage. Chelsea also has a 1-inch reach advantage, with her reach being 68 inches. Nunes brings an explosive strike rate to the match, landing an average of 7.22 significant strikes per minute at a 44% accuracy. She tends to keep the fight standing. Defensively, she's successful in thwarting 70% of takedown attempts against her. Chandler, who is 3 years older than Nunes, presents a more measured approach with 3.12 significant strikes per minute at a 45% accuracy. Her takedown average is 0.78 with a takedown accuracy of 33%. She has grappling in her arsenal, even if it's not her primary strategy. Nunes is on a hot streak with 3 consecutive wins in the UFC, showcasing her striking ability with 2 unanimous decisions, one over Zara Farron and the other over Ramona Pascal, and a knockout victory over B. Malecki. Her ability to land around 100 significant strikes in 2 of these fights and finish one early by knockout highlights how she has dangerous hands. Now, Chandler, on the other hand, has had mixed results in her last couple fights, with 1 win by a first-round knockout and 1 loss by a unanimous decision where she was outstruck by Norma Dumont. The knockout win against Julia Stolyarenko shows that she can finish fights, but the loss shows that there are gaps that her opponents can exploit, especially against a striker as aggressive as Nunes. The predictive models seem to pick up on this as they overwhelmingly favor Nunes, with a strong consensus across multiple methodologies, including logistic regressions and support vector machines, giving her a probability as high as 93%. This indicates confidence in her stand-up game and defensive capabilities. When all predictive models are weighed together, Nunes retains a commanding lead with a 77% win probability. This combined forecast points to her being a challenging opponent in the octagon, likely due to her striking volume and defense against takedowns. With all things considered, I predict Josiane Nunes will triumph in this fight with a less confident, more realistic 63% probability. Analyzing her striking volume and efficiency, along with her takedown defense, suggests that Nunes will keep the fight standing where she excels. Chandler's grappling could pose a challenge, but Nunes' ability to fend off takedowns might neutralize this threat. Given her history and fighting style, I see Nunes securing the victory by knockout or technical knockout. Chandler's best chance appears to be taking the fight to the ground, but overcoming Nunes' stand-up barrage to get there could be a significant hurdle. I honestly think this fight will be a fun one, and I think Nunes will dictate the pace and the outcome of the fight with her striking. In the next fight, we have Nathan Levy versus Mike Davis. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these two fighters. Nathan Levy has made an impact on the lightweight division with his unique blend of karate and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's demonstrated versatility and technical skill using a wide array of striking techniques paired with submission skills. His ability to switch seamlessly between stand-up and ground fighting has made him a tough puzzle for opponents to solve, earning him recognition for his strategic approach and dedication to martial arts. His opponent, Mike Davis, comes from the United States and is known in the MMA community for his explosive power and athleticism. Davis has showcased a striking-heavy style with a preference for boxing and kickboxing techniques that have led to some spectacular finishes. His stand-up game is complemented by a solid wrestling base, allowing him to control the fight and where it takes place. Davis's aggressive approach and knockout power make him a dangerous matchup for anyone in the lightweight division, promising an intriguing clash of styles against Levy's more technical and diverse skill set. Now let's go ahead and compare their stats. Nathan Levy stands at 5 feet 9 inches tall and is the elder fighter at 32 years old with a reach of 71 inches. He brings to the table a solid striking game, averaging 4.01 significant strikes per minute at a 51% accuracy. In the grappling department, Levy shines with an impressive takedown average of 5.37 and a takedown accuracy of 57%. However, his takedown defense at 41% could be a concern against a proficient grappler. On the flip side, Mike Davis boasts a 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Davis outstrips Levy with a higher significant strike average of 5.83 per minute and a similar striking accuracy of 52%. His grappling stats are less impressive with a lower takedown average and accuracy, but his takedown defense is much stronger at 69%. Nathan Levy has had 3 wins and 1 loss recently. 2 of his wins are unanimous decision victories against Genaro Valdez and Mike Breeden. He outstruck Genaro Valdez and took him down 6 times. Mike Breeden outstruck him, however, he took him down an insane 9 times. He has an arm triangle submission victory against Shaheen Santana, and he does have a unanimous decision loss against Rafa Garcia, where although he outstruck Garcia, Garcia just landed more takedowns. He might have a potential weakness against people who can out-grapple him and nearly match his striking volume, but even then, he didn't get finished. Davis has had a mix of outcomes in his last few fights, showcasing his ability to win both by strikes and grappling. Recently, he's been on a 3-fight win streak with 2 victories coming from unanimous decisions and a knockout victory against Thomas Gifford. His loss to Gilbert Burns, a high-caliber opponent, by a rear-naked choke submission shows that he is vulnerable in his ground game, which might be exploited by a skilled grappler like Levy. The predictive models are mostly favoring Mike Davis. The models that lean heavily towards Davis, like the support vector machines and the neural network model, may be picking up on his striking volume and defensive grappling, giving him a confidence that ranges from 51 to 90%. However, the 1000 fight simulations and random forest models interestingly swing towards Levy, hinting at his potential to win through multiple fighting paths. When the prediction models are all combined, Davis comes out on top with a 59% probability of victory, which indicates a general consensus that Davis's striking and defensive grappling give him an edge in this matchup. Taking all of the analyzed data into account and combining that with qualitative knowledge, my final prediction is that Mike Davis will come out ahead with a more confident 65% probability of winning. Given his striking volume, accuracy, and strong takedown defense, he's expected to have the advantage in a stand-up fight. However, Levy's grappling is not to be underestimated, and if he can take the fight to the ground, he could turn the tables. The method of victory for Davis is likely to be by decision, given his ability to outstrike opponents and defend against takedowns. Nonetheless, there remains a possibility for Levy to secure a win if he can successfully implement a grappling strategy and control the fight on the mat. It's set to be an exciting fight where strategy and execution will be the key to determining the winner. In the next fight, we have Gerald Meerschaert versus Bryan Barberena. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these two fighters. Gerald Meerschaert is from the United States, and he's a veteran middleweight fighter known for his exceptional grappling skills and submission ability. Meerschaert has earned a reputation as a submission specialist, with a significant number of his victories coming by way of submission. His ability to find a submission from almost any position on the ground has made him a feared competitor among his peers. Meerschaert's experience and technical ground game have allowed him to remain a constant threat in the highly competitive middleweight division. His opponent, Bryan Barberena, is also from the United States and brings a completely different style to this matchup. Known for his toughness and heavy-handed striking, Barberena has built a reputation as a fighter who never backs down from a challenge. With a background that emphasizes striking, particularly boxing, Barberena is known for his ability to engage in wars of attrition, pushing the pace and testing the resilience of his opponents. His willingness to stand and trade blows, combined with a durable chin, has led to some memorable battles inside the octagon. Now let's go ahead and take a look at their stats. Gerald Meerschaert towers at 6 feet 1 inch tall with a significant reach of 77 inches, giving him a physical advantage in both height and reach over Bryan Barberena, who stands at 6 feet tall with a 72-inch reach. Meerschaert strikes at a rate of 3.3 per minute with a 44% accuracy and has shown a tendency for submissions with an average of 1.5 per fight. Barberena is more active in striking, averaging 5.53 significant strikes per minute at a slightly higher accuracy rate of 48%. He absorbs more strikes than Meerschaert, but also has a higher takedown defense. Meerschaert's recent UFC fights show a mixed record with critical submission wins, demonstrating his skill on the ground. However, losses by strikes and decisions indicate potential vulnerabilities in his stand-up game. Recently, he's beaten Bruno Silva and Dustin Stoltzfus and has lost to Andre Petroski, Joe Pyfer, and Krzysztof Jotko. Barberena has experienced 3 recent losses in a row from Mahmoud Muradov, Gunnar Nelson, and Rafael dos Anjos, but also holds a notable win by knockout against ruthless Robbie Lawler and a decision win against Matt Brown. His ability to land significant strikes in volume, as seen in his fight against Robbie Lawler, highlights his stand-up capability. He is vulnerable against opponents that have a great grappling skill set, so Meerschaert needs to capitalize on that weakness in order to win. The predictive models show strong unanimous support for Gerald Meerschaert to come out with the victory in this fight. Notably, the neural network model shows strong preference for Meerschaert, likely factoring in his submission skills and reach advantage. Confidence probabilities range from 51 to 73%. There's only one model that slightly tipped in favor of Bryan Barberena, which was the gradient boosting model, but it only gave him a 51% probability of winning. Combining all of these predictive models, Meerschaert emerges with a 55% probability of winning. This combined prediction suggests a slight edge, possibly due to his ground game and reach, which will likely mitigate Barberena's striking advantage. Considering the data and qualitative information, my final prediction is a more confident 61% chance of victory for Gerald Meerschaert. With his effective grappling and submission skills, it's likely that Meerschaert will look to take the fight to the ground. His strategy will probably involve using his reach to manage the distance before finding an opportunity to grapple. Barberena's striking is not to be taken lightly though, and if he can keep the fight standing, he does have the power to end it. However, given Meerschaert's defensive grappling and submission threat, the prediction here is a win for Meerschaert through submission, as he can leverage his ground game effectively. If Barberena can dictate the pace and keep the fight in his striking range, he could sway the outcome, but Meerschaert's grappling intelligence is expected to prevail in this encounter. In the next fight, we have Pannie Kianzad versus Macy Chiasson. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these two fighters. Pannie Kianzad is from Sweden and is a standout competitor in the UFC women's bantamweight division. She's known for her striking accuracy and boxing skills. She has consistently demonstrated her toughness and skill inside the octagon. Her ability to maintain the distance and utilize her jab effectively has made her a formidable opponent for anyone in her weight class. Kianzad's resilience and determination in her fights showcase her commitment to climbing the ranks and making a name for herself among the fighters in her division. Her opponent, Macy Chiasson, comes from the United States and has made an impact in the same division with her versatility and athletic ability. Chiasson, who was the winner in the Ultimate Fighter 28, has utilized her background in Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to secure victories both by knockout and submission. Her well-rounded skill set allows her to adapt her strategy based on her opponent, making her a dynamic and unpredictable fighter. Chiasson's strength and size advantage in the bantamweight division have also been key factors in her success, helping her to control opponents and execute her game plan effectively. Now let's go ahead and compare their stats. Penny Kianzad comes into this fight with a height of 5 feet 7 inches tall and a reach of 66 inches. At 32 years old, she presents a striking rate of 4.87 significant strikes per minute with a 49% striking accuracy. Her grappling stats show a takedown average of 0.35 with a 30% takedown accuracy, and her takedown defense is strong at 71%. These stats suggest a preference for stand-up fighting, but with the capability to defend against grappling when needed. Macy Chiasson stands taller at 5 feet 11 inches, which is a 4-inch height advantage, and boasts a 6-inch longer reach at 72 inches. She's also 32 with a significant strike per minute rate that's slightly lower at 3.64 with a 44% striking accuracy. Her grappling game is more active with a 2.17 takedown average and a 34% takedown accuracy, complemented by a 64% takedown defense. This highlights Macy's balanced approach, as she's competent both in striking and taking the fight to the ground. Kianzad's last 5 UFC fights showcase her endurance, with all fights going the distance and being decided by unanimous decision, 3 of which have been wins and 2 of which were losses. Notably, her fight against Alexis Davis marked her highest number of significant strikes at 124, underscoring her striking volume. In fact, throughout all of these fights, she's outstruck her opponents. She's lost to Ketlin Vieira and Raquel Pennington. Chiasson, on the other hand, has also had mixed results, with her most recent fight ending in a loss via a kick KO/TKO against Irene Aldana. She's also had decision wins over Norma Dumont, Marianne Renaud, and Shanna Young, and has also lost to Raquel Pennington. Taking a look at the prediction models, we see a divided outcome that still generally trends towards a victory for Macy Chiasson. The neural network model interestingly favors Kianzad heavily at 72%, likely valuing her higher strike rate and accuracy along with her better takedown defense. When we weigh the prediction models together, we find a tight race, with Chiasson just getting the victory with a 52% probability. This shows that statistically, this is a great matchup and will be closely contested. My final prediction, with all things considered, tips in favor of Macy Chiasson with a more confident 58% chance of victory. Chiasson's height and reach advantage, coupled with her balanced strike and grappling stats, are pivotal factors. I respect Chiasson's adaptability and strategic diversity and think that they will be key components to her success in this fight. In terms of the method of victory, Chiasson's history and stats suggest a strong ability to end fights on the ground. Considering Kianzad's solid takedown defense, however, it is probable that Chiasson may secure a win via a unanimous decision instead. If it will go the unanimous decision victory route, Chiasson will leverage her reach in striking exchanges and execute takedowns to score points, ultimately leading to a judge's decision in her favor. In the next fight, we have Ovince St. Preux versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these two fighters. Ovince St. Preux is from the United States and is a seasoned light heavyweight competitor known for his dynamic fighting style and exceptional athleticism. St. Preux has become famous for his versatility, showcasing his ability to finish fights both on the feet and on the ground. His signature move, the Von Flue choke, has become synonymous with his name, highlighting his adeptness at submissions. St. Preux's experience and physical attributes make him a challenging opponent for anyone in the light heavyweight division. His opponent, Kennedy Nzechukwu, also fights out of the United States and brings a compelling mix of reach, power, and resilience to the light heavyweight class. Kennedy has carved out a space for himself in the UFC with his striking skill and durability. Known for his ability to maintain composure under pressure and deliver powerful counterstrikes, Kennedy's fights often showcase his heart and determination. His height and reach advantage have been crucial in his battles, allowing him to utilize his jab effectively and keep opponents at bay. Now let's go ahead and compare their stats. Ovince St. Preux, standing at an impressive 6 feet 3 inches tall with an 80-inch reach, brings a wealth of experience into the octagon at 40 years old. His statistics reflect a measured fighting style with 2.71 significant strikes per minute at a 47% accuracy rate, suggesting a strategic approach to striking. In the grappling department, he averages 1.15 takedowns per fight with a takedown accuracy of 38%, indicating a preference for mixing stand-up with takedowns. His takedown defense sits at 66%, and he averages 0.5 submissions per fight, which points to a dangerous ground game. On the other side, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu, a younger fighter at 31 years old, towering at 6 feet 5 inches tall with an 83-inch reach. Nzechukwu's stats show a more aggressive approach with 4.86 significant strikes landed per minute and a similar accuracy at 46%. Although he attempts fewer takedowns on average, around 0.68, his takedown defense is impressive at 80%, and he's shown that he can handle himself on the mat. Looking into St. Prue's last 5 fights, we see a fighter who has experienced mixed results with 3 losses and 2 wins. He's gotten a split decision victory against Mauricio Rua and a KO/TKO victory against Alonso Menfield. His losses are all by KO/TKO and are from a talented Jamal Hill, Tanner Boser, and Felipe Lins. These outcomes highlight St. Prue's vulnerability to powerful strikes, but also his ability to finish fights himself. Sechukwu's recent record is a bit more consistent with 3 consecutive wins out of his last 5 fights, before recently losing to Dustin Jacoby with a first-round KO/TKO. His wins over Ian Cutelaba and Carl Robertson by KO/TKO demonstrate his finishing power, especially in stand-up exchanges. He also has a split decision loss to Nikolai, although he outstruck him in terms of volume. Let's take a look at the prediction models. Predictive models strongly trend towards a win for Kennedy. Confidence probabilities range from 51% to 79%. The neural network model, however, interestingly favors Ovince St. Preux, favoring how he absorbs less strikes per minute and also has a better takedown average. When we weigh all of the models together, Kennedy emerges as the favorite fighter with a confident 64% probability of victory. Taking everything into account, I predict Kennedy will secure the victory with an even more confident 74% probability. Analyzing the range of data, Kennedy's significant strike rate and defensive grappling metrics stand out, suggesting he'll maintain the fight standing where he's most dangerous. St. Prue's experience and submission skills should not be underestimated, though. However, Kennedy's striking ability is hard to ignore. Considering St. Prue's recent vulnerability to strikes and Kennedy's finishing power, the most likely method of victory will be by KO or TKO. St. Preux will need to leverage his grappling and submission attempts in order to counter, but Kennedy's strong takedown defense suggests he'll probably keep the fight in his preferred striking domain. If Kennedy controls the range and pace of the fight, he'll find that finishing strike that he's going to be hunting for the entire fight, especially if St. Preux shows any signs of wear, which we can expect since he's had an extensive fight career, and let's be honest, he's 40 years old. In the next fight, we have our co-main event, Bryan Battle versus Ange Loosa. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these two fighters. Bryan Battle is from the United States and is a promising talent in the UFC's middleweight division. Known for his victory on The Ultimate Fighter 29 recently, Battle has demonstrated a well-rounded skill set that includes effective striking, solid grappling, and a high fight IQ. His adaptability and perseverance inside the octagon has made him a tough matchup for his peers. Battle's ability to perform under pressure and his continuous improvement from fight to fight signal a bright future for him in the sport. His opponent, Ange Loosa, also fights out of the United States but is originally from Switzerland and has made a name for himself with his aggressive fighting style and striking power. Competing in the welterweight division, Loosa has shown his skills across various promotions before making his presence felt in the UFC. Known for his durability and relentless pressure, Loosa's fights often feature high-paced action and exchanges that test the will of his opponents. His focus on striking, coupled with the ability to absorb and deliver heavy shots, make him a dangerous competitor in every fight. Now let's take a look at their stats. Bryan Battle towers at 6 feet 1 inch tall with a significant reach of 77 inches, presenting a distinct advantage in height and reach over Ange Loosa, who stands at 5 feet 10 inches tall with a 74-inch reach. At 29 years of age, Battle showcases a striking frequency of 4.52 significant strikes per minute with a respectable striking accuracy of 54%. This demonstrates not only his activity but also his precision. On the grappling front, Battle averages 0.94 takedowns per fight, though with a relatively low takedown accuracy of 25%. His takedown defense stands at 45% and he averages 0.6 submissions per 15 minutes, painting a picture of a fighter who is more inclined to keep the fight standing but isn't averse to engaging on the ground when necessary. On the other hand, Ange Loosa is 30 years old and impresses with a higher strike rate of 6.32 significant strikes per minute and a comparable striking accuracy of 46%. His stats suggest a more aggressive striking approach complemented by a better grappling record, boasting 2.25 takedowns on average and good takedown defense. His submission average is lower at 0.2, indicating a preference for position over submissions when the fight hits the mat. Let's look into Bryan Battle's recent UFC fight history. Recently, he has had 4 impressive wins and only 1 loss. Notably, his wins are diverse, as he's gotten a rear naked choke submission against AJ Fletcher, 2 KO/TKOs against Gabe Green and Takashi Sato, and a unanimous decision victory against Trishan Gore. His loss is from Renat by unanimous decision, where he was outstruck and taken down 7 times. Regardless, he's a well-rounded fighter who can generally handle a fight wherever it can go. But for him to beat more difficult opponents in this division, he'll have to fine-tune his grappling skills. Now let's take a look into Angelusa's recent UFC fight history. He's recently gotten 2 unanimous decision victories over Rhys McKee and AJ Fletcher, and prior to those 2 wins, he had 2 unanimous decision losses from Monir Lazes and Jack Della Maddalena. He does really well in fights that he can control, where he outstrikes his opponents or outgrapples them, but he struggles against fighters that have better striking or that can control the pace of the fight and take the fight to the judges. Let's take a look at the insight from the prediction models. Although some point to Bryan Battle, the trend leans towards Angelusa. Confidence percentages for Lusa range from 51% to a confident 83%. Models favoring Angelusa are likely picking up on his striking volume and grappling, and how that could be a weakness for Bryan Battle, given his fight history. The 2 models that lean towards Bryan Battle are highlighting his height and reach advantage, his greater striking accuracy, and his tendency to absorb twice as less significant strikes per minute. When we weigh the predictions from the different models, we find a more balanced view with Lusa favored at 59% to Battle's 41%. This considers the individual strengths and possible weaknesses of both fighters, reflecting a closely matched contest. Taking everything into account, both quantitative and qualitative information, my final prediction for this match is actually opposite of the prediction models. I predict Bryan Battle will beat Angelusa with a narrow 53% probability. Despite the models leaning towards Lusa, Battle's reach and striking accuracy combined with a respectable ground game tells us that he has the tools necessary to control the fight. Given his history of wins by both submissions and KO/TKOs, it's reasonable to predict that Battle will look to use his reach advantage to outstrike Lusa, wearing him down for a late stoppage. I predict Bryan Battle will secure a victory by TKO in the later rounds, using his striking to create an opening for a decisive finish and controlling the fight up until that point. I'm not disregarding Angelusa's ability and skills though, which is why I landed on a narrow margin of victory. This is a great matchup and should be very fun to watch. In the next fight, we have our main event, Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura. Let me give you guys a brief introduction to these 2 fighters. Tuivasa is from the land down under, Australia, and is a heavyweight contender known for his knockout power and charismatic personality inside and outside the octagon. Tuivasa has quickly become a fan favorite with his aggressive stand-up fighting style and the trademark celebration of drinking from a shoe after a victory, which is known as the shoey. His ability to end fights with a single punch has made him one of the most exciting fighters to watch in the heavyweight division, showcasing a blend of raw power and striking technique. His opponent, Marcin Tybura, comes from Poland and brings a versatile skill set to the heavyweight division. Tybura has shown his proficiency in both striking and grappling throughout his experience in the UFC, making him a well-rounded competitor. With a background in Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Tybura has the ability to control the pace of the fight, whether it's on the feet or on the ground. His tactical approach and conditioning have allowed him to outlast his opponents in fights, earning him a reputation as a durable, strategic, and powerful fighter. Now let's go ahead and compare their stats. Tuivasa stands at 6 feet 2 inches tall with a reach of 75 inches, whereas Tybura has a slight height advantage at 6 feet 3 inches tall and a reach of 78 inches. Tuivasa, at 30 years old, is younger than the more experienced 38-year-old Tybura. However, what stands out is Tuivasa's higher significant strikes landed per minute rate at 3.98 compared to Tybura's 3.55, which highlights his more aggressive striking game. Tybura, on the other hand, shows a better striking defense at 55% versus Tuivasa's 43%. Tybura also has a great takedown game with a takedown average of 1.39 and an accuracy at 33%, which demonstrates a more balanced approach, incorporating grappling into his strategy, something Tai Tuivasa lacks. Looking at Tai Tuivasa's 5 most recent UFC fights, we see a pattern of striking-based performances. His last 3 fights ended in a loss, unfortunately, with an Ezekiel choke loss to Alexander Volkov and KO/TKO losses to Sergey Pavlovich and Cyril Gane. His striking is really effective when he's successful, as seen in his wins over Derek Lewis and Augusto Sakai, both ending by KO/TKO. His recent losses have raised questions about his defense and ability to handle fighters who can match or exceed his power and have shifted his momentum and confidence recently. Let's take a look at Tybura's recent fight history. Marcin Tybura's last 5 fights display a mix of outcomes with 3 wins and 2 losses. He's demonstrated the ability to go the distance with 2 wins by decision, showing stamina and strategic fighting over 3 rounds. He also has a first-round KO/TKO victory against Walt Harris back in 2021. His loss to Tom Aspinall and Alexander Volkov, both by KO/TKO, highlight his vulnerability in striking defense, but his overall record suggests a more versatile skill set compared to Tuivasa. Let's break down what the models predict. The logistic regression model and support vector machines heavily favor Tybura at 64 and 70% respectively, while the neural network model shows a strong confidence in Tuivasa at 65%. Most models lean in favor of Marcin Tybura and take into account how he can be more calculated in his striking and how he also brings grappling to the table in this fight. The models are highlighting how Tai Tuivasa is a heavy hitter, and although he has one-punch knockout power, it may be ineffective against a more calculated and strategic opponent. When the predictions of all models are weighted, Tybura emerges as the slight favorite at 55%, indicating that when all factors are being considered, his chances of victory are higher. This takes into account his versatility and ability to finish fights both standing up and on the ground. However, my final prediction, taking into account not only data, but knowing how fights in this division tend to be, my final prediction favors Bam Bam Tai Tuivasa with a narrow chance of 51% to win the fight. Although the models and his recent records suggest vulnerabilities, his striking power just can't be disregarded. Based on his historical performance, Tuivasa will likely pursue a KO/TKO victory, leveraging his significant striking skills. However, Tybura's more rounded skill set and experience could turn the tide, especially if he can extend the fight and wear Tuivasa down. So in terms of method of victory, I predict a KO/TKO based on his preference for striking, which would likely be in the first or second round, before Tybura can really settle into the fight and employ a more strategic approach. If Tuivasa can land his shots early, he could secure a decisive victory, but that would require him to shake off his recent losses and balance being bold and defensive. And with that, those are all of the fights for UFC Fight Night Tuivasa versus Tybura. Here are some potential bets that I think might be worthwhile to consider based on my final predictions, intuition, data science predictions, and both quantitative and qualitative information. I've provided the odds, the probability confidence percentages, and the returns based on those odds. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like and subscribe as it will help keep me motivated in creating these videos for you guys. Running this data and analysis, the prediction models and charts and graphs takes hours every day and week, so I'd really appreciate all the support. See you all in the next one.